Hey everyone, and welcome back to Volunteer Friendly. This is episode 19, Is Your Culture Toxic? Volunteer Friendly is a podcast for worship leaders, musicians, music directors, tech directors, production members, really anyone involved on a Sunday morning and in making Sunday happen. If that's you, then you're in the right place. Welcome. If you're returning and you've listened to the podcast before, then welcome back. I have to say, today's episode is going to be a little on the heavier side, and I want to have a bit of a disclaimer up front. We've had a few episodes like this. This is a pretty heavy, weighty topic. Essentially, if the answer to this question, is your culture toxic, is yes. I try not to impose a value judgment on any of these. We just present a statement, we discuss it, we provide 3 questions to process, and we're done and out of here in 10 minutes. I want to let you know up front, if your answer to your question is your culture toxic, then you should leave. And you should get some help from someone to help you walk through that. Like, your problem is not going to be solved listening to a 10-minute podcast episode from some 35-year-old punk in Texas that's going to solve this for you. Hopefully this is the start of something bigger. Okay, with that out of the way, I do have to let you know, if you're not used to Volunteer Friendly, again, what an interesting way to start, right? Welcome. But every week on the show, we pick a topic, we pick a question, something that's hopefully going to provoke some strong emotions in you or make you go, I never thought about that before. Why do we do that? Should we do that? I'm not really sure. That's the goal of every episode of this podcast, is to really get you thinking and really processing to figure out, is this the right thing or not? Should we do this or not? The way we do this is each week we discuss a topic. I provide 3 questions to help you process on your own, contemplate on your own, then finally to discuss with your team. We try to do all this in 10 minutes or less. So let's dive into today's topic. Is your culture toxic? And here's what I mean by that. I want you to think about the culture at your church. Do you walk away just drained on Sundays? Do you feel abused? Do you feel like underappreciated? Are your volunteers constantly complaining? Do staff members just hate each other? I've been in scenarios where I've worked at churches and in organizations where people were just talking behind everyone's back. There was no trust from anyone. People were being taken advantage of, not in a criminal way, but in a way that it's just like people were seen more for what they could do than who they are, right? If that makes sense. And you may define toxic in a lot of different ways based on your upbringing, based on what you've experienced. Toxic may be a very specific thing, and that may take a lot for you to call something toxic. But then based on the way you're wired and your upbringing, toxic may not take a whole lot for you to get there and say that something is toxic. Hope this episode is a good first step for you to really contemplate this. Because again, it means different things to different people. That's why we do these processing questions and discuss with our teams to help us get there. And I hope this is a good first piece. So that first kind of idea, is your culture toxic? Again, that brings up lots of different things. I've been in scenarios where I would say the culture is toxic, and people would back me up on that and say, yeah, there was something wrong with that it was toxic. I've been in scenarios where I think I've caused some of that toxicity due to gossip, due to not doing my best, due to just kind of being checked out. I think I could add to some of that toxicity. But I've also been in scenarios, and again, this is what I like about the shows, is trying to kind of push back on ideas and scenarios. I've been in scenarios where someone would call a situation toxic, and maybe the way they feel, it feels toxic, but you interview every single other person in the situation and you go, no, it's not toxic at all. And in the end, you look back on it and you go, oh, what made it to that person toxic was that one person, their response to the situation. They were causing issues. Again, let me personalize this to myself, because it's hard to talk about things in general. I've been in situations and scenarios, again, where I have encouraged a situation to be toxic because I was unhappy. I was kind of checked out. I was ready to move on, and we'll talk about that in a second. And instead of moving on, and instead of saying that, what I did was I just talked behind people's backs. I didn't spread rumors, but I definitely gossiped. I would say, man, that's really hard working for this guy, huh? And the other person would kind of go, yeah, you're right. It is. And we kind of, misery loves company kind of thing, right? I was miserable. This person was miserable. We'd talk about it more and make ourselves more miserable. And then we'd invite people to join our misery club, right? that's not helpful. And so I can look back at certain situations and go, yes, that situation was toxic, but I didn't help. I didn't improve things. I made it toxic myself. Again, I want to be very careful because this is a heavy subject and you view this differently. But here's what I think is going to help. Let's get into our processing questions for this week and see if this helps us dive a little further into this and process this. Every week on the show, like I mentioned, we pick a topic, we pick a question, something that's hopefully going to be a little controversial, I'm going to poke the bear. It's going to force you to really think through this. And the goal is I want you to think about this topic. I'm going to present you with 3 processing questions that I hope you can contemplate on your own. You could process on your own. And then finally, you can discuss with your team. And the way that I make this easy or try to make this easy for you is provide a PDF each week that if you click the link in the show notes of this episode, click the link in the description of this video if you're watching on YouTube, then you can download this PDF for free. And it gives you those questions that, again, you can contemplate on your own, process on your own, and then share and discuss with your team. And this is going to be a sensitive one that may feel a little odd and out of place to discuss with your team. But I think it could be important. It could open a door. So let's get to this. Simple, easy questions, not easy, but simple, small questions this week, but have a lot of ramifications. Question number 1, is your culture toxic? I just want to throw out the show's episode name. Is your culture toxic? If you say yes, maybe add like a 1A there or 1B is why? Why do you feel like it's toxic? In what ways do you feel like it's toxic, right? Again, I would say if it's toxic because someone's being physically or emotionally abused, then like you need to get out of there. You need to talk to police or authorities or whatever. Like there's other things you need to do. But if it's just you feel underappreciated, you're miserable, you're not unhappy, you don't feel taken care of or whatever, you may say this is a toxic culture, but why is it? Now here's number 2. This one's going to hurt a little bit. And again, I'm not trying to say that you're the problem, but I think this is a good thing to look at. And I can internalize this again to myself and answer to number 2, yes, in a few situations. Number 2, what can you personally change? What are things I can change about how I'm doing this? If the culture is toxic and I'm gossiping constantly and complaining about my boss, complaining about fellow team members, well, it would probably improve if I stopped complaining to fellow team members about fellow team members, right? It would probably get better if instead of complaining about my boss to someone else, I went to my boss and said, hey, I'm struggling with these things. Can you help me with this? Can you help me figure this out? Things are only going to get better if I do that. Now, granted, if you're in a truly toxic situation, you go to your boss and say, hey, I feel like, you don't trust me or something. And the boss says, no, I don't trust you. You're out of here, you're fired or whatever. Well, then you were in a toxic situation. That you answered that question. We nailed that one. Number 3, this is a really straightforward answer. If your culture is toxic, if there's stuff you can't change, or maybe there is some stuff you can change. Number 3, why are you still there? That may be a hard one to answer. I talk to folks that I see them and I go, oh, how's it going? Well, it's really tough. My pastor's this, he's this type of guy. He does this sort of thing. And it's just really hard to work with and blah, blah, blah. And I often go, okay, well, why do you still work there? Oh, well, I feel called there. I feel blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, then stop complaining about it. Like if you feel called there, then that's where you're supposed to be and just move on with it. See our previous episode about what is calling anyway. But if the situation is so bad and it's so toxic, why are you still there? Right? That's our 3rd question. Again, I hope this doesn't come off as arrogance or someone who knows it all, because I don't, because I'm telling you straight up, I've been the person to cause the situations in the past. I just hope we can use this to dive a little deeper and to even just kind of like snap our fingers and maybe open our eyes and look at the situation and go, if it's so bad, why am I here in the first place? So I hope those 3 questions help. Again, if you want that free download, PDF download to share with your team, to contemplate on your own, to process on your own, then click the link in the description in this video and the show notes of this episode if you're listening on a podcast app to download that PDF completely for free. And we post new episodes of Volunteer Friendly every Thursday, 10 a.m. Central. I hope you can join me on the next episode. And I post new content every single day on the YouTube channel, new tutorials about performing on stage with Ableton Live. Wednesdays are all focused on worship leading content. So would love to see you there. Head to the YouTube channel. I'll add the link in the description of this, the show notes of this episode. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one next Thursday, 10 a.m. Central. Take care, everybody. Bye.